Hello, everyone. Andre off the top here to say a few things first. First of all, this episode is part 3 of a 3-part series on the BioShock trilogy. If you haven't heard the first 2 episodes where we talk about BioShock and BioShock 2, check the description of this podcast to find direct links to those. But beware, because those episodes, as well as this one on BioShock Infinite, will contain full spoilers for the game, up to and including the ending. We are not holding back at all. So this is your one and only chance to turn off this episode right now if you don't want to be spoiled on BioShock Infinite, as well as parts of BioShock or BioShock 2. Secondly, as most people might know, BioShock Infinite is a game that attempts to deal with racism and segregation, and the language used in the game reflects the way those people are treated. This means that not only are we going to discuss the racism presented to us in detail, there will also be discussion of racial slurs, including me using my one privilege as a black man to discuss a couple of these slurs that other people who are not black might not be able to say out loud. You get what I'm trying to say? So if that doesn't sound like your thing, this episode might not be for you, and that's fine. I completely understand that. But we hope you stick around because it's going to be a great discussion. Okay, that's it. Thanks for joining us, and let's start the show.
This is your mind on fire time.
Hello, party people. Hello, BioShock people. Hello, Infinite people. It's your boy, Dre. I am here with the Big Daddy, my fellow Big Daddy, Thrak.
I'm the biggest daddy.
He's the biggest daddy of the land. Motherfuckers. That's my Big Daddy song.
That does remind me of a particular female experience I had, but I won't go there.
Okay. You'll tell me off the air later. I want to hear about this.
I'll tell you off the air. It's hilarious.
Man, we've okay. I can't wait for that. Maybe we should just stop the show now. Let's just stop right now and you just tell me let's get out of here. Fuck BioShock Infinite. I
have to go in the shower. It's the only way I can tell you on camera.
Wow. Okay. All right. Thanks everybody.
At gunpoint. Put me in the fucking shower.
At dick point.
I didn't say which gun.
Okay. Unspecified. Thanks everyone who's taken this BioShock journey with us. We are finally at BioShock Infinite. And oh baby. Oh baby. Oh baby.
A game that, like, when it came out, it was in a time where I was kind of like not playing as many video games because I was more focused on, like, you know, girls and music and all this other stuff, right? So gaming kind of fell into the background. I was still playing stuff here and there. But I remember when this game came out, it was a big deal. Mm-hmm. Like this and GTA 5, because they both came out in 2013, was all the rage. And then a friend of mine was playing Black Flag as well, because I think that was the same year. Yeah. So those are the games I remember from that year. And I never got around to playing it until we played it for this.
Okay, me too. I've never played it before. And I know the production of this game had a lot of big delays. I feel like they meant this to be, quote unquote, BioShock 2. And it just didn't work out that way.
I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was in development. Yeah, it did start development kind of like after 1. Because they had that kind of convinced Ken Levine to even make a sequel to BioShock in general. But I guess after a while, he sort of like, he had to think about it and was like, oh, if I'm going to do another one, I should do something like different with it. So like, I think the development started in like 2008 on this guy. And it went through a lot of different variations. There was a demo of it, I believe it was like in 2011 or something, that was like considerably different from what we got. And you can, there's a lot of detail that I won't go into about that. You can kind of look into it yourself. Like it could be really its own sort of thing. But yeah, like Infinite was definitely meant to be, you know, more of a sequel in scope, I think, more than just being like, oh, we're going to do the Rapture stuff again. Like it's going in a very, very different direction, but in a way that is still BioShock. Because one of the things, See, one of the things I had heard about this game was some people were like they liked it, but they didn't think it was a BioShock game.
It's not. I don't think so.
At first, maybe, but I think the further in you get to the game, the more it feels like BioShock. At least in my opinion. You know, like you can tell it's still the same team.
I never felt BioShocky from this game personally.
Okay.
I get it. It's not a sequel to BioShock 2, nor is, I don't know. I don't know why this is called BioShock Infinite. They probably could have just called it something else. But.
Well, I think about it like this. They both take place in these societies that have separated themselves from like America, right?
Mm-hmm.
And are being led by these weird enigmatic leaders. And there's a lot more going on under the surface than you realize. But with Infinite, it's like with BioShock 1, you're there like after the shit has gone down. With Infinite, you're there like right when the shit goes down, right? But it feels like the story and the setup and everything is very, very similar. You know, both of them are kind of exploring different sort of like ideologies, like world ideologies, but from like, you know, different perspectives. Like Infinite does a lot more out there things with what it's trying to say than BioShock 1. That's me being nice about it. But in some ways I think it hits like pretty well. Like you may disagree with me with this, but like spending some time and thinking about it, Infinite might be my favorite one in the series. At the very least, I think the gameplay is the best of the three.
Absolutely.
I love how this game plays. Like it's just a standard shooter at this point, but it feels so good to play this game.
It's a fucking fantastic gameplay wise. So basically this is my overall take. It's obviously a pretty ambitious game, and the gameplay is pretty unparalleled. It's way better than the first two, but it's paired with a story and characters that are clearly written by people who want to say something, but are either too afraid to say it or don't know how to say it. And I'm not going to mince words here. I think BioShock Infinite might be one of the most cowardly games ever made in that regard. Cowardly.
I think if you look at the writing of 1 and Infinite in particular, I think Ken Levine comes off as a fence sitter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that just might be his like legit opinion, which is fine. But I think Infinite, for me, it had a lot of shock value at the start. And then at a certain point, as you're still going, like in the middle, it kind of dips and it feels like it tries to both sides certain things. I think it does.
We'll get there.
And I remember playing, I'm thinking, I don't think that's a good look, but it kind of picks up near the end and I like what it does with the ending.
Yeah, I think it
goes,
goes...
it's something completely different.
I think it goes off the rails for me there. And in another game from 2013 that everybody loves that I don't is The Last of Us. Another game that I think is like offensive.
That's why you and Chris get along so well, because he hates Last of Us 1 too.
But it's the same thing. I love the gameplay of Last of Us. I think BioShock Infinite is better gameplay, but I really do like the gameplay a lot of The Last of Us. But boy, howdy, those people. Woo.
Do you prefer 2?
I never played 2.
Okay. Then I won't say anything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, that's basically where I'm coming from with this, or where we're both coming from with this. So that's a good starting point on this. What did you know about this beforehand? I think this is very important because obviously this game is pretty controversial. It's one of the most polarizing games ever. Yes. Some people love it, but in my experience, most people I know hate it. So
it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. Like I know people who adore this game and other people, who are like, fuck that game.
So I've somehow managed to avoid all the discourse about it. I didn't even know it. I didn't even know it tackled racism until like 2 months ago. I swear to God, I didn't even know.
Honestly, I didn't know either. But like my head is so buried in the sand with this kind of stuff. Like I have a tendency of I'll avoid spoilers for a game until I start actually playing the game. And then when I play the game, when I'm not playing the game, I'm like reading things about it. And then sometimes I'll accidentally spoil things for myself, which is like something stupid that I do. But like if I'm not playing the game, I'm just like, I don't give a shit. And I avoided everything that happened in Mass Effect until I finally played it all the way through like 2 years ago. Like I was blind to the whole thing. I was like, why do people hate like 3? What happened? And now I've experienced the entirety of Mass Effect, so I know. And I have my own opinion on the Mass Effect 3 ending. It's perfectly fine. But yeah, like Infinite, yeah, it was one of those games that like it has like sort of that polarizing thing, and that always intrigues me when some people really like something or they really hate something, especially like a piece of like art. Because with all 3 BioShock games, particularly 1 and Infinite, if you look at their Wikipedia pages, one of the things they always get praised for is they're considered one of the first video games as an art form kind of a thing. Which,
please get out of here.
I mean, I don't want to. I mean, yes, video games are art, but like I feel like the whole video games being art is on like a spectrum. Like some games are more artful than others, But I think 1 in Infinite, I mean, they can be art in that they handle sort of like storytelling and are trying to do sort of like different things. And it's like, yeah, sure. But like playing this game, I didn't get the whole like, oh, this game is a piece of art the same way I would play like Journey or Cocoon,
Yeah,
different
but
games.
That's the problem. I think people think of video games as art is so fucking narrow. Because if anyone's going to tell me that Pac-Man isn't art, they can fuck off. Pac-Man is fucking art, man. The visual language of that game is iconic for a reason, right? It is. So like if someone's going to tell me, oh, we need to have this like cinematic like fucking
Pong
thing for it to be art. Yeah.
But like, as I've always said, like it's on a spectrum, and I think it depends on what the intention behind the game is. Like, yes, video games are art, but are you going to sit here and say like, oh, Madden 25 was made as like a piece of art, man?
Of course not. Yeah.
No, it's a commercial product, and some video games were made more to be commercial, consumable products than say interactive pieces of art. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, they all are that. But, certain games come off as more like pieces of art than others. That's all
for
I'm trying
sure.
to say.
Okay, so here's how I want to do this, because I feel like we want to talk about pretty much everything that happens in this game.
There's a lot.
Yeah, so here's basically what I want to do. I wrote my notes in essentially chronological order because I sketched them out as I was playing the game. So how about I just kind of go through, and you can interrupt me at any fucking time you want, which will obviously be a lot because there's a lot to go through, and we can just kind of go through the game almost like how if anyone here on Fine Time, if any Fine Time listener listens to us do movies and we kind of go through the movie events and then talk about other stuff in between, kind of like that basically.
That's
but
fine.
now for a video game, right?
I think that's perfectly fine, because I will say I love how this game starts.
Me too. Hell of an intro.
It has one of the best like intro sequences I think in any game I've ever played. Genuinely.
Let me paint the picture for the audience then, because it's like you're on this boat. You get dropped off at this lighthouse. You ring the bells on top of this lighthouse. The entire sky starts to pulse red, complete with like these red god rays. Like Satan himself is coming down from heaven or something.
Like if you think about it, it's the setup with the lighthouse is very similar to 1.
Yes.
Because in both cases, you're just kind of out in the middle of nowhere and you just see this random ass lighthouse and you go into it and you're like, what the hell's going on? But this game makes it a lot more intriguing because it does more of like almost like the Hansel and Gretel thing, where it just kind of gives you these little pieces before, you get to the top and like the sky's going red. Yeah. And you're like, what the fuck is this?
You hear that
and
foghorn. The foghorn,
that very
you know what
loud,
I mean?
Yeah.
And this begets a chair that you sit in and that you immediately get automatically strapped into, and then you're launched into the air, into this sky utopia that models itself after every cliche in the book, right?
But before we get to that, I think we need to talk a little bit about the protagonist, Mr. Booker DeWitt, because you can tell this time they, instead of going the silent protagonist route like they had been doing, they're like, oh, we can afford Troy Baker. So we're going to have Troy Baker voice the main character and have him talk a lot. I feel like the only reason they got Troy Baker was just because he was like, like hot commodity at the time. Like, I think he does a fine job, kind of. But like
I guess.
as we'll find later in the game, you're not the main character.
You're not the main character. Also, he stands for nothing and I hate him. But so anyway, we get up to the sky utopia, that every cliche in the book, angels, demon, all these statues, you get what's into what is looks like a ultimate church up in the sky, right? You hear these organs, and it's like it goes off the rails immediately. Right? You're already like doing some crazy shit. And I'm like, oh, I'm with this. I like this. It was straight out of a fever dream. I was like, what the fuck am I in for? And I thought, even at this point, even if this game sucks, it's going to be fun. There's going to be something here for me. And I was correct.
Like this whole time, like I remember when I booted up the game, I'm like, all right, let's see, what this fucker's about, right? And then I'm doing the lighthouse stuff and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is whatever. And then, when you go into the thing and shoot up, it's like, oh, yep, we're going to Columbia. It's like similar to 1 when you get into the bathysphere and you see the like Rapture and everything. It's a similar thing.
Yeah.
But Infinite it takes a left turn like right after that. Yeah, you land in that church where there's like all the candles and the water and all of like the almost like kind of druid type people that are like not even really paying attention to you. And I'm just like, what the fuck is this, man? And you're seeing all this crazy religious iconography, and it's making little hints at things, but at this point, if it's your first time playing, you don't really catch on any of that. So you just keep going. And like, and Troy Baker's talking, whatever. And then you cut to where they're having sort of like a seance almost. And then this guy, he just sees you and he's like, oh, we need to like baptize you or whatever. And then you get fucking baptized like right there. Do. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then you come out of that into like the main courtyard of Columbia. And like you're met with those statues of, I believe it's Washington, Jefferson, and Franklin. And then you start like walking around and you're seeing like people like talking and commiserating and everything. And it's all in the clouds. And this is like early 20th century. So this takes place in 1912, I believe.
1912.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So it has all of that early 20th century thing about it. And it feels like a fever dream because you're walking around. You're probably like me, like looking at every little thing and being what the fuck is it?
What the fuck is this?
Like it was so weird. Because Rapture, when you get to Rapture, it's completely destroyed and you're just sort of like piecing it together as you go. But like imagine dropping into Rapture as it's like hustling and bustling, right? You probably have a different vibe to it. And I think it was smart of them to put you into Columbia as it's like, kind of at its peak before things start getting really bad.
And I think that change of scenery was very necessary too. Obviously, you can't do Rapture again. You just can't. Okay. Like we already did that twice. And the second time around, it wasn't as good. It's still good, but not as good. You can't do that a third time, right? Until the very end. And so then I ain't to fuck. Nah. I ain't shushing nothing. If you haven't even played this game, I already warned them up front. Okay. Nah.
Well, I'm just saying we'll get into it later.
Of course. I'm just saying that like the change of scenery was really necessary, I didn't mind revisiting Rapture in BioShock 2, even though it was basically like the first game. But again, it's like you said, it's not destroyed yet. It's hustling and bustling, and it felt overwhelming in a good way. Going out in the city, you're being inundated with like all these bizarrely cultish religious quotes and imagery. It's kind of creepy, obviously.
And it's all based on like American politics as well.
Yes. And there's like a small parade that holds up the bridge through town. You know what I mean? You're seeing them go by, and the floats have people depicted in them. Like the paintings almost look like they're straight out of like a Jehovah's Witness like pamphlet or something. Yeah.
And I don't know if you caught this, but in the early bit, there's like that little barbershop quartet singing, and they're singing a very particular. Do you know the song they're singing?
I didn't catch it.
It's "God Only Knows" by the Beach Boys.
Oh.
And I remember I was saying to somebody, I'm like, that is weird. They're singing that song in particular, and somebody said that song, those lyrics are important to the story.
My Beach Boys knowledge is really shitty, so so I wouldn't have caught that. But no, I didn't.
It's a very good song. It is well worth your time.
But yeah, like you get into the carnival game section, right? There's all these barkers and sounds of coin and people talking, and again, it's overwhelming in a great way. The sound
Yes.
design in this game is actually fucking fantastic.
Oh
You
yeah, and
know,
I love
it's
the
great.
art style too. Like it's like it's very colorful, and you can tell they're like not going for photorealism. They're kind of allowing this sort of like early 20th century type of like animation and art style. It's almost like Art Deco ish, which is similar to like BioShock 1. But it feels the characters here are a little bit more exaggerated just in terms of like, it's fiction. They don't have to look, like realistic. They more look like perfect representations of characters, which I think also was another intentional move. And you just sort of, take in this aesthetic the whole time. And I remember thinking to myself, and I didn't realize it would play into port so later, but I remember looking around and I was thinking, there's a lot of fucking white people around here.
Yeah. I mean, look, I had the same thought about the first two games, right? So when Grace Holloway appeared in BioShock 2, I was like, whoa, okay. And then they kind of did something weird with it and did not explain themselves. That's the entirety of BioShock Infinite. Oh, so like...
God damn.
I didn't realize that Grace Holloway moment would be foreboding for an entire game to come. By the way, I've never seen the technique of God rays used so literally before. Like they literally, like the blinding white light in this game is like really cool. Go big or go home, I guess.
Well, it's very like angelic, and it's meant to sort of, because you're in the sky. So in a way, it almost represents this sort of like utopian, like heaven type of society for a specific type of person. Because like Rapture, like, hidden underground, it's sort of like you're under the sea. It's sort of meant to evoke sort of like, sort of like dark undercover kind of shit that's going on, because there's a lot of that going on in 1 and 2.
Right.
But here it's like, no, this is like up in the sky. Like this is the dream, man. Just floating on a fucking cloud. Playing a fucking like throwing the ball at the bottles shit. You know what I mean? And it's just like, walking through it was very like uncomfortable, but I think that was the idea, because you're just like, this is like because you're going through it and you're like, something is wrong. Like this doesn't feel right, because the only reason you're going up there is because you were sort of forced, as has been sort of described to you, like you have to go save some young woman named Elizabeth. That's all really, and so you go up there and you're like, oh, I gotta find Elizabeth. And to be fair, it is a little while till you meet her, which I think is good, because it allows you to sort of soak in this like fantastic world that they've made with Columbia, which I don't know if I prefer it to Rapture, but I think both environments really are sort of the main focus of the game. Like at least like in BioShock 1 and 2, Rapture feels like the main character and everything that's going on with it. Whereas in Infinite, Columbia sort of starts as like a main character, but as it goes on, it becomes more about like Elizabeth and Booker and sort of that whole situation that's going on.
Right. I agree with that for sure. But I think that's why I was pretty drawn into Columbia from the outset. I like the weird turn of the 20th century, American motif here with the weird flags, right? It's not the colonial flag, but it's also not like the American flag we have now. So it's just kind of like, what the hell is this? Obviously it's not the quote unquote real 1912, right? So they can do whatever the fuck they want. It's just that like,
it's trying to be a mixture of like the American flag, the sort of like the 13 colonies flag. Like maybe hinting a subtle hint at the stars and bars, just a hint. It's in a way, it feels like it's trying to mix all the different sort of styles of American flags that had been around from the beginning to 1912.
I'm sure someone thought they were doing something, but but yeah, I think it's interesting that like, we're talking about Americana, like America's past, and we get that in Rapture from all the Art Deco and like all that kind of stuff, and now in Columbia we get a completely different shade of that. Maybe that's the most BioShock thing about it,
Yeah, for sure,
I would say. So I mentioned when we talked about BioShock 2, I really miss the immersive scripted stuff. I don't miss that shit anymore in BioShock Infinite because, baby, let me tell you, they pour it on. And quite frankly, it is a masterclass in how to do something like really linear with hardly any gameplay, but also make the player feel like they're part of something. That's the thing I keep coming back to with BioShock. And again, that's something every developer says they're trying to do in the AAA space. BioShock Infinite actually fucking does it.
In a weird way, I think this improves upon 1 with having those sort of interactive cinematic experiences where there are times where it does like take the control away from the player a little bit, but like it never changes camera angles or anything. You're still there, right? So you're always invested in what is going on and you're always playing the game from Booker's perspective. So, you get to see how everything, plays out in his eyes. Even if the game like takes the control away from you for a second. To like have Elizabeth look at you like this fucking close to the camera or whatever, know.
No, so. that is really excellent about this game, and I'm glad they brought that back in spades. Okay, let's just get to it. Let's get right to it, okay? The first part of the game here, you go to that raffle drawing. This girl comes out on stage to present the drawing bucket to the MC, and he says, "Well, isn't this the prettiest white girl in town?" Or something like that. And I'm like, bro, what?
And I'm like, why did he say white? Why did he say white?
And it's quickly revealed that your quote unquote prize for winning this raffle is that you get to throw a baseball at this interracial couple. This white dude and this black lady. And the MC was like, "Oh, we got a shy one here. Or do you just take your coffee black?" I mean, that was kind of funny. I'm not going to lie. It was kind of funny. I laughed. I did.
Yeah, like when I first saw this, my first thought was like, "Oh, why is this black guy up here? What did he do?" And then they started talking. I'm like, "Oh, fucking god damn it." And then the game gives you the choice.
Yeah.
To either throw the baseball at him or throw the baseball at the dude, at like the presenter or whatever. I chose to throw the baseball at the presenter. I just couldn't in my heart throw it at the guy. I couldn't do it. I was just like this. Nope, I don't like this. And then that's like immediately shit fucking goes haywire.
Yes.
Like right at that point.
Yeah. Then you start shooting. But before we get to the action, we can talk about that in a second. I need to ask you this at this interval. This is really important. To me, anyway. How do you think the common person receives this game at the time in 2013? Because we talked about in the first BioShock, we talked about how I was surprised in retrospect that these games were mainstream hits.
Yes.
And so how do you think John Q. Gamer, who plays Gears of War and Halo or COD or whatever, receives this? Do they think it's just a joke and they laugh at the prettiest white girl thing? Do you think they're like, well, that was fucking racist, and they just keep it moving? Right? Or maybe none of this, maybe it doesn't matter and they're just there for like shooty bang bang. Let me shoot something. They don't really care what's happening. And I'm not trying to paint every quote unquote casual gamer as stupid. I'm just wondering like how like you understand what I mean, right? I just can't believe something like this was so like how do you think this was received by someone like that?
I think it comes down to sort of the political climate in America at the time. This was 2013. This was like the first year of Obama's second term, right? And if you think about it, at least my view of it at the time, I was only like 19, so your opinion may be a little different, is that it felt like politics back then wasn't as, say, heated as it is now, and that there was some form of stability, right? And so things weren't always viewed in this like heavy sort of politicized way that things seem to be now, which really started in 2016, really, where like, people tend to view just about every piece of media and entertainment now from a political spectrum, be it performative or not. Right. But I think that's a whole nother discussion. So I think maybe at the time, people maybe didn't view it so strongly as maybe some people would now. I mean, it definitely did cause controversy of certain things. It's just like, it's pretty blatant about it right at the start. And it's like, you can't ignore that. really.
Yeah, I would just
but the
imagine.
thing is, I knew like weird right wing people in high school, so I knew people who fucking watched Glenn Beck in high school.
Oh my
What's
God.
wrong with you, you fucking weirdo?
See, I was naive, right? Because as you know, I grew up in San Diego. So grew up in Southern California. I'm not meeting people like that.
Yeah. Like I live in a blue county of what was once a swing state, but is now like a light red state.
Yeah.
But I'm in a blue county, so I see a little bit of everything, and as I was actually saying to somebody about this earlier, being a cisgendered white male, I'm able to sort of be a political chameleon. I can kind of blend in to like a lot of different political ideologies and like kind of see all different kinds of from the aisle stuff because I'm kind of viewed as safe.
You sure are.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Without people really knowing my opinions, which certain people shouldn't ask me. They probably wouldn't like them.
For sure. But yeah, that is interesting. I'm glad I don't know if it's a agree or disagree thing, but I think I'm glad you understand where I'm coming from on that.
Yeah. And this is coming from a guy who in 2012 was in a US government class, and my teacher made us watch every debate. And so like we would watch them in class and like take notes and all this stuff. So I was pretty like well researched on the 2012 election because like it was kind of part of like my schoolwork. So I knew quite a bit about like the Obama Romney stuff and like I like Citizens United and all the stuff that was going on at that time. So like I was pretty well aware, but at least from my vantage point, like the people around me, again, it was just like, just coming out of high school kind of thing.
Right.
Like most people really didn't talk politics. It was more just, we were talking about like video games and other kind of, bullshit like that.
Of course.
And it felt like talking about politics wasn't such a walking on eggshells sort of a thing.
It wasn't, but also today the stakes are just higher. I mean, that's just,
they are, that's a whole,
that's a whole thing. But I think that's why people are more like about it because it matters more now than it maybe has been. But let's talk Shooty Bang Bang. Because this game, BioShock Infinite, is fucking fantastic. Now, I want to start with this comparison because this is something I never compare any other game to, mostly because I think this game is overrated as hell. But I gotta say it here. The combat in BioShock Infinite feels like GoldenEye, but good. Doesn't it? Am I crazy? Am I off base with that?
They feel different to me.
Okay. It felt like it felt like the thing I always felt people talk about GoldenEye being is that, but I feel like BioShock Infinite is actually that.
Sure. Like honestly, when I was playing it, the gameplay, like the shooting and all that, it felt closer to like the COD games of the time. Like it's not the same like control scheme because there are certain things that are different, but it felt like they were trying to make the actual gameplay closer to Call of Duty because that was sort of like at that point that was like the first person shooter, right? So it in a way it feels like it's trying to be something a little closer to that while still trying to maintain some of the BioShock stuff with like the they're not plasmids, they're called something else in this game, but I
forget. They're plasmids. It doesn't matter.
Who fucking cares?
It does
right?
not matter.
But it definitely made the action scenes a lot more fun because not only do you have the nice shooty stuff, you have that really cool like melee weapon that can like fucking rip people's heads off.
Oh yeah, that's incredible. I love that thing.
And you can attach it to like rails, so you could do some like kind of like acrobatic kind of aerial combat here and there, which is really cool.
So cool.
I feel like it's very underutilized. They don't use it nearly as they could have used it a lot more.
I feel like they used it plenty. Really, I can't believe. I
would have liked. I would have liked maybe a couple more variations on it.
Okay,
just a me thing.
All right.
And the plasmids, they don't feel as useful here as in the other games. Like the one I really liked is when you could like take over, like like machines or whatever. You can make them like your allies.
Yeah.
Like that was always cool. It's kind of like the possess Big Daddy kind of thing. But you still get like your electricity, your telekinesis, your fire, and all that stuff. They try to do slightly different things where it's like, oh, you can like hold it to lay like a trap for enemies so that they could do, which was cool. And I liked laying traps. You know, it felt like all the changes were meant to make the gameplay like more fast paced and more exciting. And I think it does handle that a lot better.
That's what it is too. Yeah, you're right. The pacing, and it feels exciting, and they're much more set piecey, like the battles. Yes. And I think that's good in this case, because this is a game that's, you're not exploring around anymore. And BioShock 2 kind of has less exploration, which I think it ultimately was good, but this really doesn't have any. This is a straightforward, this is a AAA game. You are going forward. Yeah, this is a hallway. You're going forward. And again, and that's the thing I always say about these kind of games, it's fine if you make the gameplay compelling. I don't think Call of Duty is like fun to play personally, so I just don't get into those campaigns.
Certain games are funner than others, I think.
Yeah, this BioShock Infinite is just, man, it is just balls to the wall. It feels great. It's snappy. That's something you cannot say about the first two games. This feels snappy.
It is very snappy. I agree.
Yeah. And I like that, again, you don't have the weapon wheel anymore. You just can pick up, you can have two weapons, almost like a Halo or other games that do that, where you can just kind of swap out a weapon. And that's fine. I think that's good. That's another reason why it doesn't feel very BioShocky to me, because I'm used to all there's no weapon wheel and a bunch of types of ammo and shit. You just, here are the two weapons you want to use.
But what's interesting is that you can collect ammo for every weapon, and you just always have it with you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So like when you're swapping between all the, because I found myself constantly having to swap, like, oh, I'd run out of ammo with this gun. Let me just pick up another gun. I found myself doing that a lot because I feel like they don't give you enough ammo for the guns in the first place. And there are like the same kind of upgrade, like there's sort of the same upgrade tree in this as like the other games. But I found myself not using it as much because I didn't get enough money. Yeah. So I was kind of like underpowered for a good chunk of the game, but it's not like it was like terribly difficult or anything like that.
Right.
You know, like if you're pretty good, you can kind of just like plow your way through this game as far as like the gameplay is concerned. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe having like 3 weapons would have been nice, because it was just kind of annoying how it's like I would just constantly have to find enemy guns and swap them out all the time.
Yeah, but I think they wanted you to do that. I think it's like, okay, I'm out of ammo for this thing. Let me go find a different type of gun. I think that was like kind of on purpose in a way.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of Breath of the Wild with the weapon durability.
Okay,
but I think that's handled worse. like that's always been kind of a point of contention in Breath of the Wild about the weapon durability, and it's
better in Tears of the Kingdom because of some stuff, but ultimately it kind of feels like the same thing. I'm one of those people who don't mind it, but you know, I understand.
I always would have preferred, like, if the weapon durability system is fine, but I would have liked, say, like, there was like more levels to the durability, where it's like after a while it's like, oh, it's a damaged weapon, you could still use it, you know, kind of a thing. And then there's maybe like blacksmiths where you could like spend rupees to, like, say you find a weapon you really like, and then you'd want to spend money to like keep it repaired and all that stuff. I think that should have been an option.
That should have been an option. Also, it gives, because like especially in Tears of the Kingdom, I have no idea what the fuck to spend rupees on. So like, I mean, that would have been like one thing I definitely would have done.
I played like 30 minutes of Tears of the Kingdom and went, I don't want to do this.
I understand. No, I like Tears of the Kingdom more than Breath of the Wild personally.
I put like 90 hours in the Breath of the Wild. I really enjoyed it, but I honestly am never going to play that game again.
I understand. That's a totally valid feeling about that.
Give me Mario Odyssey all fucking day. Now that's a game
we should be on Mario Odyssey 5 by now if I had my druthers.
Well, Bowser's Fury was good.
It was fine.
And then when the Switch 2 comes out, I imagine Odyssey 2 will be right there. Like that and Prime 4. You give me those two with the Switch 2 at launch, I'm there.
We're there. Something else I want to highlight is that BioShock Infinite's level design is also really fantastic. Like the first two games relied on giving you this like directional arrow, because it's so dark and you're not going to make heads or tails of anything. So you really need that kind of thing. Or check the map every 2 seconds to make sure, okay, this staircase leads to that part or whatever, like we talked about, right?
Exactly.
Infinite has level design crafted to get you moving and schmoving, baby, from place to place. It, like, as we said, it's pretty much a linear game, but you do get to explore around here or there, right? But so you're not totally on rails, but even the parts where you are, you don't feel like you are, which is the important part.
And the best part is if you ever get lost on where to go, I think it's you tap up on the D-pad and it draws an arrow on the ground.
Oh yeah, that is, yeah. I did employ that a few times because okay, I'm done exploring around. Where do I go? Right?
Yeah, and I like that. Like the audio design, like some of like the sound effects and all that are taken from BioShock 1, but they're altered a little bit.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Like that was a nice little like touch there as well. Like again, they do like little things to connect Infinite to the 1 and 2. Little things throughout the game until say we get near the end and it just throws it in your face.
Okay, it's time to talk about more racism, okay? Because
thank God, I was chomping at the bit.
Okay, so basically, when you get in the, I don't know if it's like the Sky Station or whatever the fuck that thing is, the Sky Subway, you find a audio log of some guy who's like making a deal, and he just makes some offhanded comment about the price of it, and he's like, I'm half a Jew when I smell silver. And it's like, yo, dude.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Shortly I know, right? It's ridiculous. And then shortly after that, you find that poster with a very outdated drawing of a black man in chains. Mm-hmm. And it says, I think it says, only when the Negro is free, then we will be free.
I believe so, yes.
And it's like, okay. And then this
was that your first N-word drop, sir?
No, that's not the N-word I'm going to say later. And
it's Spanish for black.
Sure, yes.
I can say it.
I can say it.
I mean, you can, but
I don't want. I'm okay.
Okay, I mean, shit. I gave you permission.
Nope. Okay. I'm not walking into that trap. I'm no dumbass. I ain't walking into that fucking trap.
Let's talk about our favorite hip hop lyrics here on the air.
Shame on it. Never mind. I love ODB.
Don't we all? We all did. Rest in peace.
Old dirty bastard, live and uncut. I could keep going.
Please don't. This is where we start seeing the, how do I say it? The rhetoric start to ramp up. This is where you start seeing the signs that say protect our race. This is where you start seeing the signs that say in pursuit of our racial purity, and it has the family, right? The white family. This is where you see the guys, you see all the workers are black, basically, and you see all the everyone else is white. This is where you see the whites only sign, as I think, I don't know if you have Elizabeth at that point. It's like you see it says like whites or something, and you're like walking through a hallway.
I think you're getting to that point.
Okay, yeah. And this is like, you start seeing all that kind of stuff. I don't know if this is an audio log or you overhear a black worker say this, but he's like, I guess even in these places, these crackers need people to clean the floors or something like that. I forget who says that.
Because the whole like reason Columbia exists is because Mr. Comstock, Zachary Comstock, was, I believe he was part of the the Pinkertons, and he essentially wanted Columbia to like be promoting like American exceptionalism, which is still something we're dealing with to this day, actually. Mm-hmm. But Comstock interfered in the Boxer Rebellion, which for those who don't know, the Boxer Rebellion was a uprising in North China in the late 1800s, early 1900s that was meant to sort of go against the the British Empire and all that stuff, because of the British Empire's history with China and everything. And so like Comstock, siding with Whitey, essentially attacked Peking during that, and that caused a rift between him and President McKinley, who was the president at the time. And so they kind of worked out a deal to where they were just like, okay, look, how about you just make your own little Columbia thing, but it has to go up there. It can't be down here. It's got to go up there. And they're just like, and he's like, bet. And then fucking goes up there.
Okay.
So it was one of those things basically. So it was that the US government demanded that Comstock would return, but that's when like Columbia seceded to be its own thing.
Okay.
So in a way, Columbia is like a floating confederacy.
Yeah. That's kind of how I always took it. But
fucking traitor pieces of shit.
Yep. And it all comes crashing down, and that is kind of sweet, but not really. But here's what I find bizarre about all this racial stuff that I just mentioned. This stuff isn't your garden variety casual racism that you might have heard in 1912, right? This is something else entirely. This game is trying to say something, but I have no earthly idea what BioShock Infinite is trying to say.
It almost feels like they want Columbia to sort of be a video gameized version of the Confederacy, where, you know, like racism was like intentionally baked into its documentation. You know, in the US, it was done a little bit more subtly,
right?
But here it's like, you know, right there. I mean, hell, they even like reference, like they talk about worshiping the founding fathers as like, you know, religious icons. But yet when it comes to Abraham Lincoln, because he freed the slaves, they're like, we don't really like him too much because he freed the slaves. And there's like, I think there's a statue to John Wilkes Booth. And it's like, what the fuck, guys? Like we're going there. And it's trying to, like, it's going so far with like the racism stuff. It almost comes off as like cartoony.
Yeah.
You know, which feels like it's almost diminishing the effect because it's hitting so strongly that it almost kind of desensitizes you to it a little bit. You know what I mean? Especially when your main complaint is that they're not really saying anything with
That's the sucky part about this game. They don't, you can't have signs that say protect our race and racial purity and all this shit and then not really talk about it. Here's the thing. Again, this is not the real 1912, right? And I get it. Like what I'm about to say is a little bit, I'm talking about like the 50s or 60s or whatever. But we know in the South after World War II, you can see signs, not everywhere, but in the South that say like, Japs keep moving. This is, white man's country or some shit like that, or niggers stay out, or whatever the hell they had in the South. Whoa, who said that? Who said that?
It wasn't me.
Okay. Yeah, you can see stuff like that, right? But those are like very but those are very like localized like thing. I mean, like I said, I grew up in California. I would never see something like that, right? So I'm
sure, I mean, you don't have to go in detail, but I'm sure even in San Diego you dealt with your own, like people being kind of racist towards you.
Very, very rarely. Even as a biracial angel born in 1982, I really, man, no one ever called me a name like that. I've never even been called like a Oreo or some shit that kids might say that I've heard in other places. Like I've never heard that.
Because I've known of like, like mixed race people who deal with it from like both sides.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I again, it could be our different experiences because like, growing up where I have it's always been kind of multi-ethnical where I've grown up. And like when I went to school, there was like, it was all type of, like whites, blacks, Asians, Latinos, like the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I got a decent amount of multiculturalism, but like Ohio, I've always said is like a weird mixture of like the East Coast, the Midwest, and the South. And so, and you would see a little bit of all three of them. And so I guess it was like, you saw some of those racial opinions on things as well, like things like microaggressions, and then not a lot of blatant stuff, but a lot of like subtle stuff that I look back and go like, oh, that was kind of weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I know
it could just be that like our vantage points are different on that. You know, especially like growing up, like in middle school, I was the token white guy. Like in my group of friends. Okay. Yeah, for real. So, and whenever we would like go out and like do stuff or whatever, like I saw like the microaggressions people would have towards them. Like it was never directed at me. It was always directed at them.
Yeah. I have felt microaggressions for sure. You know what I mean? If I felt anything over time, it's that, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
But thankfully I've never lived anywhere or been in a situation or been around people where very blatant racist things have either been said to me or done to me, which is, you know, I mean, maybe I'm lucky, but
yeah, you talk to Steve.
Yeah, yeah, you know, every
calling
time
you out, Steve, you bitch,
Steve. Every time he talks about drinking unsweetened tea, I just say "to Americas" into the microphone, and he doesn't.
My dad loves unsweetened tea. I don't get it at all. I don't even like sweet tea.
You know, I like tea, but it better have
hot
something.
Tea. It needs hot. I like hot tea. I don't like cold tea.
You know, I like hot tea more, but like, yeah, I always to America's him on that, and he doesn't.
Yeah, I drink hot tea when either like I'm sick or it's like really fucking cold outside. You know, that's when it feels good.
Fine time.
So like after like as you're rescuing Elizabeth and after all that like shooty bang bang, I thought it was a really smart call to have that facility level where you're tracking Elizabeth. Well, I guess it's before you rescue her because you're tracking her.
Yeah.
Through various rooms, and you're kind of like spying on her, and you see her like rip open the reality, right? And it's playing Tears for Fucking Fears because you know it's like the 1980s, right? So it's like okay, and then she closes it. And it's like what? Why are we?
And that's like a motif that repeats later, where it's like you hear like Cyndi Lauper and all that stuff, and I don't really know what they were trying to say with that. Honestly, I should have looked into that really, because that was like a weird thing. That's like, are they trying to do something with that? I'm not quite sure.
I don't know.
But it is here where we meet the true main character, Elizabeth. What do you think of Elizabeth?
I think she's a really interesting character. She's the only character in the game I can stand for the most part. So like maybe that's part of it. And I don't know if I said this well enough about The Last of Us up front of why I kind of shit on it. I hate every single person in that game. Everybody. She might be the only person I think is interesting enough to like quote unquote follow, you know? And it's just, I liked her role in this entire thing.
Yes.
I'll say that.
She reminds me a lot of Yuna from Final Fantasy X, where it's like that's like she's like the main character of that game too, really. And the whole game is like you as the protagonist are playing as somebody who has a direct relationship with her. And it feels like a lot of the plot is kind of based on the relationship between the two of them, right? Though Infinite goes, you know, it does some weirder things with it, whereas with 10, it feels like that's a lot of the more of the focus of that game. You know what I mean? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, like Elizabeth, I really like her character. Like, yeah, she's really cool. Courtney Draper is I hope I said that right, is the lady who voices her, and I think she does a fantastic job.
Yeah.
She's more known for like TV roles and all that kind of stuff, but she does some other like video game stuff. Like she was somebody in like Final Fantasy Type 0. She was in Days Gone, the Final Fantasy 7 remake. So she's done some other things in the video game world anyways. Okay. But I think she brings a really nice performance to probably the best character in the game and probably my favorite character in all of BioShock. Probably.
I think you might be correct.
Well, apparently, a little fun fact that Bill always likes to tell me is that for BioShock Infinite, you know, the cover of it that has Booker on there. Originally, it was going to be Booker and Elizabeth. But back then, they were like, oh, you can't put Elizabeth on here because nobody's going to buy a game with a female on the cover. So they took her off of it. But if you look at, say, the complete edition now, it has that picture of like, you know, Booker and Elizabeth and all that. And that's what the cover was going to be.
That doesn't make any fucking sense. Why would they say that?
Because they were being fucking weird, apparently.
That literally makes no sense. There's never been a girl on the cover of a video game. We cannot sell this. Like, what the hell are they talking about?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Anyway, that's insane.
Yeah, because apparently, the original art was going to have her, and they were asked why, and they said it was designed to appeal to the casual player. So like the casual like COD gamer wouldn't want to buy a game with a woman on the cover, and it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, she's the goddamn focus of the game.
That is ponderously stupid. I can't even. That's so stupid. I don't even know where to begin.
Okay. Maybe it's because like Elizabeth is not a sexualized character at all.
Maybe
like they don't do anything with her in that regard, which I think is honestly great. Like they don't go there at all with her.
They don't need. Yeah, the story doesn't call for that, so it's not really. Nope. It's not really necessary.
Thank God.
Yes. Anyway, back to racism. So,
I mean, white women, racist.
Yeah, white women. Am I right?
Yeah.
So you escape with her. You encounter the racist people on the beach. Did you overhear their conversations? One girl was like, one time an Oriental came up to me and asked the time or something like that. And he's like, oh, no, it was so terrible. Yeah, he said Oriental.
Like a rug came up to you?
Yeah.
Like, what time is it? I heard that and I was like, oh, God. I've heard people in real life say like, Oriental, and I always go, oh God.
Oriental was fairly common when I was growing up. That's kind of what you said. We were not in the 80s. That's kind of like that's kind of what you said. So yeah,
they probably still call the Washington Commanders the old name.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The potatoes. I'm talking about the potatoes.
Oh fuck, dude. Boomers love saying Oriental. Like, trust me. It's their thing.
Every time they say that, I just go, "Oh, I love rugs."
Colored too. Some of them still say colored.
Ugh.
But I mean, like,
that gives me the ick.
Yeah, it's pretty ick. But here's the thing, and here's something I'm going to really press down on. Okay, after this part, it dawned on me what rubs me the wrong way about this game, and it's like what I said. In its depictions of racism, BioShock Infinite is completely goddamn gutless. Gutless. And in other words, if you're going to go there, then go there. Okay? Like, I don't know what you think about like Quentin Tarantino movies, but he goes there. Okay?
Oh yeah.
He will touch on those uncomfortable places, which is one of the many reasons why he's my favorite director. Okay. And I don't know if you know this story about Django Unchained, where Leonardo DiCaprio was having very not misgivings about doing it, but he's like, do I really got to say nigger? Or like, like he was like, he had to get into this character. And the thing Tarantino said to him was, yeah, you have to do it this way. If you don't, the audience will never forgive you. And he's right. You can't go into a movie like that and be like half-assed, no, should I be this way? Should I? No. He leaned fully in, and you can tell, and it made it a fucking fantastic and unforgettable character.
I mean, Django is a period piece.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense that they went that direction because it's meant to be more reflective of those times.
Exactly.
And people did not hold back then.
Nope. And you can't hold back on screen either. And if you're going to do a game about alternate 1912, you're going to have all this racist ass imagery. You have to commit. And BioShock Infinite does not commit.
I feel like it's trying to do like Columbia is trying to like clean up the sort of racism in a way, like trying to be like the nice, polite, liberal type of racism. You know what I mean? Where it's a lot more like soft, but at the same time, it like you mix it with having a fucking statue of John Wilkes Booth up there.
Yep.
And it comes off more sort of confused. You know what I mean? And then some of that issues come into when you start dealing with like the resistance group as well.
Oh yeah,
which I feel is when it tries to both sides it just a little bit, a
lot bit. But that's what bothers me about movies that are either about racism or racism is like you said, it's a period piece. It depicts a certain time. That's the ones that always win Oscars, like The Help or Green Book, or like movies like that feel like they're just there to make white people feel better about themselves. And if you're worried about people's feelings, you are not going to make compelling art. And that's what BioShock is for me with this story. Like, yeah, it is.
Like, it feels like they tried to do the whole, like, oh, there were, like, sympathetic white people at the time. And it's like, yeah, of course there was. But it's like that wasn't the majority.
No.
You know, that wasn't even the minority. It was a minority, like a minority of a minority kind of a thing.
Exactly. And look, I'm not even saying that, like we said, it's not real. It's not the real 1912, right? So I'm not saying this should be true to real life. I'm just saying that, like, if you're going to have this stuff, you should just do it. You know, it's funny that I brought up Michael Brown and we were talking about the first BioShock in relation to, like, you know, the hanging people in the street that Andrew Ryan did. Right.
Yeah.
And I want to bring him up again because I remember, I'll never forget this during that whole time, because, you know, the cable networks covered that shit for weeks and they should have.
Oh, I remember when it happened. That was
because you're a lot closer to that than I am, right? Out there. So, like,
yeah.
So, but here's the thing. I remember, I forget what channel it was. It probably would have been Fox News to do this. They had a black man on to speak. I forget who the panelist was. It was this white lady, and she was dancing around it. She was saying, if those people, or if they want to act like thugs, they can, you know, blah, blah, blah. And the black dude got so... you could tell he was fed up with the stuff she was saying, and he just interrupted her. He's like, just call them niggers. Just call them niggers then. And she was shocked. She was like, what? No, he's like, no, just say it. Just call them niggers if that's what you want to do. Okay. No, we don't have to do that. Right. We can treat people with dignity, blah, blah, blah. And the conversation goes on. But you could tell how fed up he was. Right. That's how I kind of felt, honestly, playing BioShock Infinite. I was like, just say it, man. Just say it. Even Comstock has those audio logs you could find where it's like super racist shit, like the black will never be as close to the white unless the white accepts that the black is, like, you know, it's like all this stuff, and it's like, bro, just say it. Come on. I'm not even necessarily saying just say nigger. I'm just saying, like, say exactly what you mean, please, for once. And this game never, ever, ever does it. And that drove me insane.
Like, in trying to sort of clean it up, it muddies the water.
Yeah, dude. You got it. If you want to go there, go there. I'm fine with it. I love stuff like I said, Tarantino's my favorite director because it's in part because he goes there. Okay. And I'm not saying he's a perfect person or he does everything correctly, but you can tell, like, black people looked at the script for Django Unchained. I don't think a single person with an ounce of melanin looked at BioShock Infinite. I'm sorry. Like,
no, I see it. I see what you, I mean, the writer is just Ken Levine. Like, he's the guy credited as writing the script, you know?
Yeah, man. And so, and it, you know, and I'm not saying every movie or game that depicts racism needs to be this, like, gravely serious thing, right? Because, again, let's go back to Django. There's a lot of funny things in that movie. That shit can be really funny. But there's also stuff that's not funny at all. Like when the slaves get whipped or whatever. Like, that's not funny. That's presented as, like, this very, like, brutal thing that it is, right?
Yep.
BioShock is so fucking cowardly that it won't even show you a single NPC interaction between, like, a black servant and their white superior. It's so cowardly. It's just never addressed at all. And again, going back to Comstock with those audio logs, he doesn't talk like that to any of his flunkies, or God forbid say it to any black person, because there's no black people around him, even though he thinks they're so inferior. BioShock Infinite is your typical coward racist that will call you a nigger behind your back and be nice to your face. I have absolutely no respect for a game that won't call me a nigger to my face. Not literally, but, like, you understand what I mean. Like, that's the main thing about BioShock Infinite that just...
Is it that it wants to tackle these, like, real world, like, issues and everything and trying to make some kind of stance on it, but it kind of does the, like, the politician thing where it kind of, like, pulls back a little bit because it just doesn't want to, like, say the thing because they're afraid of, like, it being too, like getting, like, too reactionary out of it.
Yeah.
When really, like, as you said, like, it's better to just, like, state the position. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like,
people would respond better to it if you were just more blunt about it.
Exactly. And I think they didn't want the smoke. They wanted the fire. They didn't want the smoke. They wanted to try to say something. And it's just like, well, okay, I'm skipping ahead a little bit here. Remember the part where you get to the older Chinese couple, right? And that whole fucking thing. And then you go into, like, one of Elizabeth's, like, other realities. And then it's, like, not a his wife is not, it's like a white lady now or something like that. And then Troy Baker's like, oh, you know what happened? I was looking for a Chinese lady. No, this is her. What? Okay. But the point is, they capture the Chinese man in the other reality, and they're saying racist shit to him. They're like, get up, you pathetic gook, and like shit like that to him. Right?
Yeah.
First of all, that's not even something you call Chinese people. I think there's another word that
That's one of them.
Yeah.
It's one of them.
Okay, I felt like that word is directed more towards Koreans or whatever. I'm ignorant on that. Number two, you have the balls to say gook, but you're not going to say nigger. Okay, I see where you're coming from. Then
it's because like that word has so much like power to it. You know what I mean? Whereas people have seemed to be more okay with saying like all the other ethnic slurs because they don't have the same history as, say, you know, that one that starts with the N because of its connection here. But like when it comes to, you know, like Jewish people or Latino people or Muslims or whatever, like people seem more okay with saying those type of ones. You know what I mean?
Yes. That is
and
true.
I'm not saying any of them as a white person. I'm not doing it.
I agree.
I'm doing the Louis C.K. bit where I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Louis C.K. anymore, but like he
I
had
know the bit.
The bit where it's like he's watching the news and they say, this person said the N-word, you know, and in his head he's like, oh, it's like they're making me say it. just fucking say it. Don't make me say it.
Yeah.
You know? But I'm gonna be that guy. Like,
yeah. I understand. I fully understand your position on this front. I'm glad you understand where I'm coming from on this, because I know like we both like this game to a degree, right? So I mean, you like it, you liked it, you loved it, and I love the gameplay of this game. Like I do. You know, so
but,
it's
but
just,
you can tell it's like this game, it was more meant for me. You know what I mean? Like it's trying to say all of these things to somebody like me, not somebody like you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that's where our perspectives come in that are different.
Exactly. And I think that's fine, you know, but just for me, I wanted more like, say it with your fucking chest, man. So I
get that. I get that.
That's kind of, by the way, I kind of want to stress this too. Not that I'm really worried about like Kevin Levine's feelings or something like that, but I don't think this game is like problematic or like racist or like I think this game is a piece of shit, like, or whatever. The only thing I could maybe like harp on is that maybe not every single ethnic person needs to like oh yes, massa, I'ma just shine in the floor and your shoes and shit. Like it felt like every black person had that like very period accent.
I don't know nothing about birthing babies.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe a little over the top, right? Maybe.
Yeah,
I get they were trying to like really drive that point home. I understand why it's that way, but I don't know. It's a little much. Okay, let's talk about more racism plus gameplay, okay? Because you can't avoid it. So let's talk about gameplay. Yeah, racist gameplay, because it definitely was, where you get to what
push
I'd like
X to racist.
Push X to a racism.
What is this, LA Noire?
Oh shit! I felt like that game dealt with some stuff better than BioShock Infinite.
Honestly,
if you ask me.
Really, yeah.
You know,
God, I want to replay that game.
It's one of my favorite games of all time.
I have a physical of it now.
Oh God, I haven't even played I only played the original. I haven't played it since it got remastered. Another great piece in the game is what I like to call the racism exhibit, of like cardboard cutout, like literally red-skinned Native Americans, literally red, and like literally yellow-skinned Asian people. Dude, it was crazy.
And then with the Asians with like the buck teeth and the fangs, and it's like, oh boy, they're a little ahead of it because that was a lot of the like the Japanese propaganda during World War II.
Of course,
where they would either be like buck tooth or fanged or whatever, you know. But like, I'm sure it was still a thing back then because also like, you know, Chinese immigration was a big thing at the time with, you know, like the Chinese coming over to help, like, you know, build the railroads on the West, and you know, and that's, you know, a part of why the West Coast has such a big Asian population. You know, that's the whole thing. You know?
Yeah, and that's why, like, again, part of my growing up, I knew Asian people. I knew, obviously, I'm from San Diego. I'm from a border town. I knew Mexican people and other Hispanic people from other countries and all that shit. So, that's part of the reason why I never got called a thing down there. But the thing is, at the racism exhibit, that's when you find out Troy Baker. I cannot remember the character's name.
Booker DeWitt.
It's Troy Baker. Do you find out Troy Baker himself was at Wounded Knee?
Yes.
And that was like, okay.
And I'm like, oh, we're going to Wounded Knee, huh?
Yeah.
Do we have to explain Wounded Knee to our audience?
I feel like people know what Wounded Knee is.
Okay.
I know. I think we can. If not, they can pause this and look that up on their phone real quick. I'm sure they.
Yeah.
I think most people know what it is.
If you don't know, please look it up. I mean, to be fair, our American education system does not do a good job of explaining the shit that we did to the Native Americans.
Nope.
It does not. So there's a good chance somebody watching may not know. Go look it up. Go look it up real quick.
The band from the 90s, Toad the Wet Sprocket?
Yes.
Okay, they have a song that's about, not literally just about Wounded Knee, but it's about Native Americans and land and stuff like that. That's how I learned what Wounded Knee was in 1997. I was 15 years old, and I listened to that song, and that's what I learned what that shit was. Not at school. So, like, to your point, I had to learn it from that terrible liberal music.
That radical leftist music.
Yeah, known as Toad the Wet Sprocket.
Terrible band name. A band name that would only
awful.
exist in fucking like 1990.
Oh, yeah. Great. I love Toad the Wet Sprocket, though. Love him. Point is, the character was there. And it's like, so this whole thing is like a set piece where you're going through the racism exhibit and he's sending guys at you. What a fucking great action. Oh my God, man. When this game does like moment to moment action, just probably better than most games I've played. It is just so good.
Fine time. All night long.
So, for the most part, I thought the dialogue between Booker and Elizabeth felt natural and fine,
Yeah, I enjoyed seeing their sort of relationship develop.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It was cool. It was cool to see.
But there's a part, though, where you get on the ship to escape, and he's going to take her to New York to essentially sell her off or whatever, and she cries for a few seconds and then knocks him out cold with a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of this happens in like 15 seconds. And I'm like, whoa, wait, hold on. Like, I felt like they could have had a much better character moment if it's like, no, this is my mission. I got to sell it. Oh, please don't do that. I want to go see Paris. Oh, please. But it happens so fast.
Yeah, it does.
It's weird. And then Booker is waking up and you hear what sounds like slave singing from the 1800s, because guess what it is? And I'm thinking the whole time as he's waking up, oh no, don't do it. Please don't do it. But they did. You literally see people in pinstripe prison suits hammering rocks, and they're singing. It's mostly black people. There's some white people there, but I would say it's 60-65% black people. And it's like, oh my God, are we really doing this? And then like you meet the head of the Black Resistance Movement. And she's like, go get it. What's her name? Fitzroy?
Yes. Let me get her name proper. Daisy Fitzroy. And you meet her. She's like, go get us some guns and we'll give you back your ship or whatever. Bye, bitch. And you're like, wait, can I please learn why people are slaves? Or like, can I please know something about this? Like, give me anything.
Tell me something about this resistance movement. This is the prime time to do it. Tell me why it's so much more racist here up in the sky than in goddamn America. Like anything, please. Oh man. What did you think of her as a character? I'll sound off on that in a sec, but like,
I don't know, man. I feel like she reminds me a little bit of like Fontaine, where it's like they're trying to have like another interesting character, but like they're set up really interestingly, but I feel like they end up not being that interesting.
Yeah. right? Because I feel like she could have been interesting, but she was not written to be interesting. Like, the premise is interesting. Okay, we do have a resistance group in, almost said in Comstock, in Colombia.
Yeah.
You know, that
I mean,
is cool.
it would make sense that it would exist, you know, with how that society is set up. You know what I mean?
But, like, again, we're going back to racism. Like, obviously, like, your character Booker DeWitt, I remember it. His name is not Troy Baker. Booker DeWitt doesn't give a fuck about anything. He does not care. Your character stands for nothing. He's just a hired gun.
He's just trying to get Elizabeth back because of reasons that we're not aware of yet.
Yeah. And he's just like, he wants to sell this girl and pay off his debts, and that's it. And
yeah, he's just trying to pay off his debts. Yeah.
Yeah. And he participated at Wounded Fucking Knee, and we still don't really, like, he's just kind of scarred by it or doesn't want to talk about it. Hey, bro, maybe someone nudge him through the fourth wall and tell him it's a video game, and maybe, like, I want to know about some of this stuff.
I mean, it feels like it's trying to hold on to it for, like, you know, narrative intrigue, you know, and you get the sense that he's kind of like, yeah, got like PTSD from the sort of Wounded Knee incident, and that's kind of caused him to become this sort of like, because you occasionally get like the whole like, oh, he's like a private detective or whatever, that I guess is like he's living in his office, and that, you know, and he has this like debt that needs to be paid off, and you're not quite sure what the debt is, you know? So, and then like Elizabeth is sort of like paying off that debt, but that's really all you know about him, is that he's just, you know, yeah, as you said, coming up to get Elizabeth, that he's not involved in this in any way. But as it progresses, you're like, there's something going on here. You know, again, it's a lot like the first game, but I think the first game does a good job of like keeping you in the dark basically the entire time until the twist. Yes. But this is trying to like kind of lean you more into like, no, there's something going on, but like just stay tuned. We'll tell you.
Yeah. For sure. I
think it's fine.
It's fine, but I think at that point I was just like a little antsy, especially when you keep throwing all this stuff at me, and it's like, please tell me something. But then again, with all the racial stuff, you don't really get to learn much at all.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's just almost just like, you know, oh, racism here, isn't that bad? And it's like, well, yeah, but like, you know, no, like most people would just say that, regardless of their actual opinion on it. Like, if you just outright ask them, is racism bad? They're going to, like, 99% of people are going to go, well, yeah, of course it's bad.
Yes. But that's the thing. Like, that interracial couple comes back from the carnival, and it's like, oh, whether you did or did not throw the baseball at them, and I didn't. And they're like, oh, thank you for whatever, and for not doing that. But it's like, but Booker didn't fucking do anything. Does he agree or disagree with anything that's happening here? I have no idea. So, like, I don't know, man. Whether you're like, make him a piece of shit, make him a racist piece of shit. At least that would be interesting. At least I know where he stands.
Yeah.
Right. But
exactly.
We didn't really get that. Okay. There's a moment in this game. There's been several moments. There's a moment in this game that fucking broke me. And look.
Oh no.
I'm willing to forgive a lot for great gameplay, and I have up to this point. Okay. And I was willing, you know, all the racism, wishy-washy messaging, the girl who can jump through reality for some reason, the weird, truncated emotional scene. Cool. Shooty bang bang. I'm cool with it. Then the reality jump happens where Booker DeWitt is a resistance hero to the people. And there's posters on the wall that say DeWitt, martyr of the revolution, and whatever. And it's him raising a fist.
And that's when you jump through, because at this point you find out that, yeah, like Elizabeth can create tears in reality, right? And it's been something that they've like talked about. And Elizabeth's like, I don't know, I've just kind of always had it, right? And then it helps out in the gameplay where it's like you can just randomly summon turrets or things to help you out in battle, which is fucking cool. And the way they handle Elizabeth in the combat sections is fantastic. She just kind of hangs off to the side.
Yes.
She doesn't help at all, but she doesn't like fight, but like nobody tries to like get her or anything, but she'll occasionally throw supplies at you.
That's so
usually
good.
Like in a timely fashion when you need them. Like how they handle the companion here is fantastic. Miles ahead of like fucking Ashley in Resident Evil 4. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
Jesus Christ.
Like it's handled, like I love how they handle her in the gameplay sections.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then dynamic.
Yes. And then, yeah, with the tears, you know, you start asking her, it's like, oh, can you like create a tear in reality that we can like go through? because when you're doing that stuff, trying to get the weapons for them, you sort of have to create a tear in order to, I think it's meet the guy who makes the weapons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's when you go through the tear, and it was at that point where I'm like, oh no, we're heading into the fucking multiverse now, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
And this was a time where the multiverse was still kind of like a new thing. Like it wasn't overdone yet like it is now.
Yes.
So that probably helped a lot of the game's positive reception, was that's like, oh, it's doing this new crazy thing with the multiverse. That's cool. And it's like, yeah, it is cool. But like a lot of things that handled the multiverse, this was the point where I just went, it lost me a little bit. Because now it's like, it's going to become very difficult to sort of follow the plot from here on out to maintain sort of any linear progression. And that case is kind of made as you keep playing it.
Yeah. I think I didn't mind the stuff that much. I don't like the way they did it, especially the ending. Holy shit.
I find the ending fascinating.
I did not like it. That is not, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just not what I wanted personally or something, but I guess we'll get there in a sec. But yeah, you're seeing the posters. DeWitt, Martyr of the Revolution. He's raising a fist. I'm like, is it possible to die from secondhand embarrassment? Like, because like I almost did. And that's why I was like, fucking, what are we even doing here? And then he says the money line. The only difference between Comstock and Fitzroy is the way you spell the name.
Oh boy.
Bro.
That one did piss me off. That line pissed me off. Because that's when it's both sidesing this shit.
Martin Luther King is the same as, the people who oppress black people. Same thing.
Who was the guy who won some electoral votes in the Jim Crow South in the 60s?
Oh, what the fuck?
You know,
yeah,
who I'm
I know who
talking
you
about.
mean. Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, MLK is no better than that guy. And it's like, you're really? George Wallace. George Wallace. That's who I was thinking of. Yeah. Yeah. Martin Luther King is no better than George Wallace. And I'm like, you fucking dick. How dare you?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? This game, he, like I said, he stands for nothing and he says nothing and he doesn't want to be a part of nothing but saving this girl. But all of a sudden he has an opinion and it's that. What the fuck? Get out of here, man.
Oh, man.
Like, that's so insane to me. And again, I don't typically, it's like I said about the first game, I don't typically get offended, if you will, at like a video game's like worldview, because it's not real. It's a video game, right?
Yeah,
I don't need to like take that to mean anything in our reality here on Earth.
I totally get that, but this game is trying to tackle real world issues. Like it's trying to say something about this stuff, so it's fair to sort of have these sort of opinions on it.
Then, by the way, right after that, you're taking down a Zeppelin single-handedly, doing some impossible white man shit, going at all these railings and shooting at all these shit. It's so fucking cool. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. It's so much fun.
It's like, and that's why you're like, God damn it. It pulls you back in because the gameplay is so good.
Exactly. It's like people who still listen to Kanye. It's like, fucking, yeah, he's a piece of shit. He has the jams. What can I say? He has the jams. Point is, so he says that, and then I realize quickly that the only reason why he says that is because they want to justify making Fitzroy turn on you for no particular reason that I can discern.
It's where like the multiverse stuff comes into play, where my issue with it is that then they can allow themselves to have more of a disjointed plot where all of these like certain things happen, and it's like, but why is this happening? Like, last time I saw you were fine. It's like, no, it's in this universe. I hate you. And it's like, but why? And they're like, never mind.
Right. Now she wants to kill this child. Right. So it's like, okay.
Yeah,
and then like, Elizabeth goes in there and stabs her to death. And then so it basically feels like Troy Baker, once again, I forgot, Booker DeWitt says that line only to Booker T to justify her turning evil for some reason and Elizabeth killing her so she can have her, oh no, I killed somebody moment, right? Fucking trash, man.
Tell me I didn't just see that.
It sucks, dude.
it gets too convoluted at this point, and that's the thing that it, like, I liked the first half so much that like the second half it just completely lost me in the story, and like, but the gameplay was so good I hung in there.
Me too.
Up to the end, and I think we might disagree on the ending, but we'll get there. Because all the while there's still that, like, there's that couple that you keep seeing everywhere, and it's like, and I don't know if they ever properly explain them. They're just kind of like there.
However, I want to say this, and I have not played the game again because why would I? But I feel like in the intro, am I crazy or were they black?
No, they weren't.
Because I couldn't fucking
They're white
tell
the whole time.
I thought they were two black people rowing you to this place, and I did not. I couldn't really see them, so I was like, okay,
no, they're white people the whole time.
Okay, I was like, if they were black in the intro,
they're not in blackface.
okay, I was like, now we're getting into some shit. Okay,
BioShock Infinite minstrel show.
Basically, I'm surprised they didn't have a minstrel show at the beginning with the carnival and everything. They probably should have had one.
What the fuck? That would have been, oh boy.
Yeah, if they want to go there, but this game is not interested in that. After that Zeppelin thing and the whole Fitzroy thing, I felt the gameplay took a little bit of a dip at some point because I feel like the balance is not as good.
Yeah, and it gets a little repetitive at this point because it doesn't it stops like innovating as much, like the gameplay is still good, but it's like at this point it's like it's kind of done everything that was going to do.
Yeah.
And so it's just giving you more of it, which is fine. I still enjoy the gameplay, but yeah, you can tell like the game kind of takes a dip at this point.
Yeah, because there's like a lot of fights with like, where you're fighting them ghosts and like ammo is just like not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, can I shoot them? I can't do anything, right? So it's like, and then you fight those like mini-me's with like George Washington heads and shit.
Oh, yeah, that shit was weird.
That was weird. Those racist accounts on Twitter that always have like statue profile pictures. Like that's who they were.
Oh my god, that's amazing. Yes. All those guys. And it's like you want to know what they look like in real life. Like you have an idea in your head.
I thought it was a little sudden at the end. I guess we're going towards the ending now. I thought it was a little sudden that it felt like he just all of a sudden decided to care about Elizabeth. It's just like, okay, now she gets captured again, and now all of a sudden this is like your most important thing. Oh, I want to save you. And it's just like, now? But you just wanted to sell her like an hour ago. I don't know what happened. Did you feel like that was a bit sudden? I don't know. Like, I
mean, it felt like they were developing like a bit of like a friendship, like it like the movie thing where it's like, oh, like reluctant partners, and it's like they spend like time with each other, you know what I mean? And now they're like, becoming like closer or whatever. Mm-hmm. It just does kind of that thing where it's like, oh, this person's okay, let me just like kind of hang with them. You know what I mean? Because they kind of do that with Elizabeth as well. I see what you mean by it being sudden, but it just kind of happens in the same way that like anything else where it's like, oh, reluctant teammates, by the end of it, they're best buddies now,
Yeah, I guess maybe if the game were like a couple hours shorter, I wouldn't mind that it felt a little bit microwaved because you kind of have to do that in a game that short. But this is like, This isn't a long game by any means.
No,
but
it's about like 12 hours, I'd say.
Yeah, about, right? But if it were more like 8 to 10, I could understand that a little more.
For sure, yeah.
I kind of don't like that you don't spend a whole lot of time with Comstock as like kind of the main villain, because he's not really like you start the game, he's kind of positioned as that, but he's not really that.
He's like this weird sort of like imposing sort of idea. You know what I mean? Like they tried to do the Andrew Ryan thing with him, but they didn't. You could tell they didn't want to copy that, so they were trying to make him more sort of mysterious. But I think in making him more mysterious, it's just like, I don't really care about this guy because they're not doing a lot with him as a character, like in any regard, really. Like at least compared to say how they handled Andrew Ryan.
Yeah, of course.
Like he's a memorable villain. Like I will never forget Andrew Ryan. Whereas like Comstock, you kind of forget about him, but when you get to the ending, maybe there's a reason for that.
Yes. I mean, you want to go there? I mean, because, like, I guess what's the final? Is it the final battle? Oh, the shit where you actually get to control the fucking bird. We didn't even talk about the bird. I don't even know what to say about that thing.
The bird is essentially, if Elizabeth is a little sister, that bird is her big daddy, basically. Like it's basically her protector, kind of a thing. And again, it feels like it's trying to have like a weird imposing sort of thing, but like again, it's like I don't really know if it does much with it or not.
No.
It's just it's introducing a lot of ideas, but it feels like these ideas aren't like fleshed out enough to really make it worth it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree, but I guess I like the imagery of the bird, and fuck that last part where you get to control the bird. You tell the bird to like, take down this zeppelin.
That was cool.
Shit was so fucking cool.
That
when this game is good,
yes.
When this game is good, it's so good. Oh my god, it's so good. I don't even know what to give this game. If I were giving it a 1 to 10 or a letter grade, I have no fucking idea, because there's some things in here that I think are almost reprehensible, and then other things that are like, this is some of the coolest shit I've ever seen. So it's like, I don't know what to do with it sometimes. It's a conundrum.
Yeah, I don't know either. Like, again, gameplay is fantastic. I think I'm more sympathetic to the storytelling than you are, just because I think like the first half, like the opening is handled really, really well.
It is.
But like the second half, like, it feels like it's that part where it's like, oh, I got to take a stance. And it's like, I don't really want to take a stance because that's like not what I'm trying to say. But like, it's like, but you're trying to say it, like, I just don't think Ken Levine is as clever of a writer to really make that work.
No.
Like he's a good writer, but I don't think he's a great writer.
It's great ideas.
Yeah.
It's
a lot
excellent.
of good ideas.
Like, and obviously, like, these action set pieces and shit like that. Oh my god, like it would be. This would make a really good movie, I think. It
could, but I kind of, but I think it works better as a video game.
Yes,
like I think people have brought up the idea of a BioShock movie, and I think it's like I see why people would want that, but I think it would defeat the purpose of what makes BioShock work, which is that it's a video game first.
Well, quite honestly, I feel like I agree with that, but like if they're going to do a BioShock movie, I want it to be Rapture. I don't think I would want it to be Columbia.
I agree. Yeah, I think Rapture would be the easier one to do. Because if they did an Infinite movie, oh my god, could you imagine the fucking online conversations? Because this was 2013, where there was online conversations, but like, again, it was a different time. Like, imagine if Infinite came out like this year.
Yeah, dude. Dude, there's people who played the first BioShock and got into libertarianism that way from playing BioShock. Oh, can you believe it?
People are so stupid.
I just can't believe it.
I kind of do, and that I think that's the sad part, is that I believe it so much.
That's insane. That's insane to me.
That was not the lesson you were supposed to take from BioShock.
It's so weird. Oh my god.
Oh god. What about the roads?
The bird stuff was fine. I liked that it was mysterious and like whatever, and I liked her conversations with it or whatever, and she's realizing what's,
like all the stuff around Elizabeth I like, because she's a great character.
She is a great character. But even her, like, she's trying to spur, like, during, like, when you're running through the place and you're, like, going through everyone in the revolution is fighting the soldiers or whatever. And even she's saying stuff like, we could help them. We could, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I don't want to be a hero. I just want to get out of here, or whatever he's saying, grumpy pants. And it's just like, she is actually thinking about it somewhat, I guess. So there's that, right?
For sure.
Yeah, with Comstock, I guess all I was trying to say was, like, I wish you at least got to, like, maim that racist son of a bitch or cut his head off with your little twirly hand or something, but you don't even really get to do that.
Yeah, you never get to fight him.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a reason for that, which, do we get into the ending now?
Yeah, let's go for it. You seem to like this ending, and I don't. So why don't you start with what you feel about it, or just detail the events, or however you want to tackle it.
So, how the fuck do I describe the ending? So basically, the game gets really meta at the very end, basically, where like essentially Elizabeth almost becomes aware and starts communicating to Booker as if like knowing he's like the avatar of like the player character. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where you learn that Booker and Comstock are the same person, and that Elizabeth is the daughter of like both Booker and Comstock. And so the whole thing was when Wounded Knee happened, there was a point where, you know, it's like, basically it's when the timeline splits, whereas like if Booker participates in Wounded Knee, like I think both cases he participates in Wounded Knee, but like if he regrets his actions, he becomes Booker and just becomes like a miserable son of a bitch, right? Because he gets PTSD. But if he actually agrees with everything is when he becomes Comstock and becomes like the crazy, like racist kind of guy, right? Mm-hmm. And so Elizabeth tries explaining that to you, that like, you know, the alternate universe thing happens, and then she like takes you through all these different alternate universes where you see like how her, you know, her little finger gets cut off due to like the tears. And she's like taking you through all of these different alternate universes, including Rapture. You explore Rapture at the very end.
A city at the bottom of the ocean? Ridiculous.
Yeah, like the new, that there's like all these different lighthouses and all these different versions of Booker and Elizabeth. And it's like, you know, that's where Infinite comes from. There's an infinite number of timelines of this BioShock sort of happening kind of a thing. Basically, it becomes like, you know, Schrodinger's cat, you know, which, yeah, basically it's like you take the box, you put the cat in the box, and then you close the lid, you know, and then it's like either, you know, and then it's like you shoot the box. It's either alive or it's dead, and it's kind of like onto like your sort of your perception, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, basically it's like, you know, Booker is the cat. And yeah, like, and Booker can either like, it's like when the Reverend reaches out the hand, Booker can accept it or reject like the baptism kind of a thing, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, and when he accepts it, he becomes Comstock because he feels absolved. But if he rejects it, he hangs on to that and, you know, basically gets into debt and has to do this sort of thing. And so when Elizabeth kills him at the end, the idea is she's trying to close the loop so she can prevent these different universes from happening. So that's like essentially it's like you're killing the cat before you ever close the fucking lid kind of a thing. It is trying to create this idea that there's like, yeah, an infinite number of universes. You know what I mean? Like here's a it's a Reddit post, but hang in there for me.
Okay.
This person says, and I quote, "If you think about it, there's more to the infinite lighthouses than just the BioShock universes. I think it's an explanation for all video games. Maybe there's a lighthouse that takes you to, say, like Final Fantasy, Half-Life, or Grand Theft Auto. Maybe one lighthouse leads you to a save where I found every heart container in Ocarina of Time. Every lighthouse represents a save game, a player choice, a different playthrough. In one lighthouse, Mario finds the princess. In another, she's in another castle. An infinity of game universes visualizes all these BioShock lighthouses." And I think the game was trying to do something like that. You know what I mean? Like trying to do some like weird infinite universe thing to sort of connect everything together. And then after the credits, there's the post-credit scene where where Booker wakes up in his office, and then you hear the baby crying over in the room, you know, where like the crib was supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And my interpretation of that is in Elizabeth trying to close the loop, she gives Booker another chance to be her father. So she's like giving him a chance to sort of correct the wrongs that he was now finally exposed to.
Okay. You know,
so why do you fucking hate it?
I just think it's a fucking cop-out, man. I don't like it's a cop-out. Like fucking it's what I've been saying this whole time. Well, I'll read this from Wiki, straight from Wiki.
Okay.
Ken Levine stated that players are supposed to draw their own conclusions from the game, with many parts of Infinite open to interpretation and speculation. To this end, Levine avoided providing an authoritative final answer regarding the game's ending, saying, "What actually matters is what people think. Why does my interpretation matter more than yours?" I don't actually on the surface disagree with that. Okay. No. I actually don't, but it fucking sucks in this instance because like maybe you should not have a video game with wild racist imagery and then not explain yourself. I don't think that's good writing. Like, that shouldn't be left open to interpretation, not just the ending, but just like it stuff in Infinite. You're only saying that because you didn't want to say anything at all. He wrote this script scared. You can tell. Like, he did. I mean, with all the stuff we talked about, plus the ending, it felt like a cop-out, but maybe that's a bit strong because it's not like I absolutely hated it. It's just that, like, we're not even going to say anything at the end. Like, at the very end, we're still not going to do it. Okay, I guess. The only, like, real thing you can latch onto is the thing that, like you said, the post-credits where you hear the baby cry in the crib. Okay, this is a reset. He's getting another chance at this, right? That's about the only thing you can really latch onto. The rest, man, I don't know. And then just taking a trip through Rapture or whatever real quick was like kind of like interesting, but like,
yeah, it was cute.
It was cute.
Yeah, I think with like, it feels like once you get to the ending, all of like that racism talk, it just kind of goes away.
It goes away.
It just kind of gives up on it because it wants to talk more about, like, you know, the infinite universe thing, which, you know, sure, why not? But it's like, you can't leave all that. But I get what you're saying. You can't leave all that stuff hanging that you were talking about earlier to go into something completely different. That's like, is this even connected at this point?
I guess it is.
You know what I mean? I mean, how Infinite describes it, it's all connected. So, and if it is all connected, then, you know, there should be something a little bit more there when it comes to connecting it to, say, the first half of the game.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like how Final Fantasy 16, like, you know, there's a lot of like stuff about slavery, and there's a lot of stuff about, like, you know, stuff like, you know, in that Final Fantasy world. But then by the end of the game, you forget about that shit. It's like, okay, whatever. What? Slavery? Were we talking about that? Whatever. Let's go attack and dethrone God. Okay, I guess, which is fine. But it's just like, weren't we going to end slavery or something? Or like, I mean, not that BioShock Infinite ever proposed that they were going to end racism by shooting everybody. At the same time, like, man, I don't know, man. Whatever.
Is it your big issue when like pieces of media use, say, like slavery or racism as like a plot device?
I don't mind that. I just don't like when it's just kind of forgotten about. It's just like, here it is in the background. We're going to do it so strongly, especially like we said, BioShock Infinite is not subtle, right? They, again, with all the signs to say protecting our race and protecting our racial period, like, you can't, I just don't think it's good when a game has a lot of imagery like that and doesn't do anything. It's so flat. It's just very, very, very flat, and it's scared. It's cowardly.
I can see that.
That's how I feel. And then the ending, just, I don't know, everything's connected. Here are 1,400 lighthouses. Here are a million versions of you and me in different art styles. And this lighthouse looks like this. I don't know, man. Just what a bummer. But then, you know, like I said, shortly before that, I got to command a fucking metal bird to fly through zeppelins and destroy them while I get to rat-a-tat-tat shoot everybody while on my hook arm on one hand and then shooting everybody with the other. It's so fucking cool.
That is cool,
right?
yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, man. That's BioShock Infinite, I guess. This might be the most conflicted I've ever been about a game. I genuinely do not know. I don't know what to say.
But could you almost argue the game wants you to feel conflicted?
Yeah, I think so.
That in that case, the game did its job.
I guess so, but man, you're right. I just wish I wanted a little more meat. Maybe like the couple who are talking in riddles, like the couple through time, right?
Yeah,
maybe
two,
I wanted a little more of that or something like that. Again, I'm not one of those people who needs the game to tell me to overturn every single stone. I don't need to know everything. I think it's good if some stuff is left unsaid, right?
Yeah,
but this was too much. This was too much for me.
Yeah, it was too vague that you're just like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. You want to tell me about the DLC, because I didn't play it.
Oh boy. Burial. so BioShock Infinite Burial at Sea. It is a 2-part single player expansion. And basically, its main premise is to more directly connect Columbia and Rapture. So, like at the end of Infinite, as you said, you go to Rapture, and it feels like it was more of like a fan service thing. And this tries to do something a little bit more connected with it. So, episode 1, it's you jump to the 50s.
Okay.
And so Elizabeth asks the private investigator Booker DeWitt to investigate the disappearance of a young girl named Sally. And so you go to Rapture, like when it's like right before everything goes to shit, right?
Okay.
And so you walk around, you meet Sander Cohen, like you hang out with him for a little bit, which is pretty cool. Because he knows where Sally is. And you go to the Fontaine department store, which is where like Fontaine was like having like his main sort of rebellion, and Ryan like sunk it. And so you're kind of transported there to find Sally. And so you look around and find her. And then when you do find her, in fact, you actually fight a Big Daddy, which in like the BioShock Infinite style gameplay, you fight a Big Daddy, which is kind of cool.
That's super cool, actually.
It is actually pretty cool. And then you find Sally because you're trying to like get her out of the vents. And then you see that she's like a little sister.
Okay.
Which kind of like freaks you out. And then Booker suddenly gets like flashbacks to when he's Comstock. And so, and you find out that like, oh, like, you know, Comstock essentially stole Anna or Elizabeth from the twins.
Okay.
From Infinite. So essentially like the two twins that you see, apparently they're like they're like actually like husband and wife. And they actually like, gave birth to Anna. But then Comstock steals Anna and renames her Elizabeth, and that is like her daughter, basically.
Wow.
And so you learn that, and then the Big Daddy basically drills you right in the fucking chest, and you die.
Game over? That's it?
And that's episode 1.
Oh, so there's episode 2.
Episode 2. So episode 1's like, you'd be like 2 hours. It's kind of whatever. Like, people didn't really seem to care for it all that much. But episode 2 is quite different.
Okay.
So episode 2, you're Elizabeth.
Ooh.
The whole time. And the gameplay actually gets a noticeable change because with Elizabeth, the game wants you now to be stealthy. So you don't get a lot of ammo, but you're able to sort of like duck and sort of evade people, and you can sneak up on people and bash them with shit as well to knock them out. You can, like, you know how she was like picking locks the whole time as well? Like you can now, like, they give you a little lock picking mini game, which is kind of cool. And they changed some stuff up. Like you start out like you're in Paris, you know, 'cause she was talking about how she always wanted to go to Paris.
Right.
But then that sort of like fades away. And then you find yourself, you find yourself in Rapture, you know, trying to essentially, you know, find Sally and all this other stuff. Right. But then you open a portal into Columbia because there's a scientist who's like, oh, my shit's in Columbia. You need to go there and get it. And so you go there and get it. And then you bring it back to him. Like here, let me see. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, Elizabeth finds her own dead body and realizes she's been killed by a Big Daddy, and returning to a universe where she died, all other alternate versions of herself have collapsed. She has lost her previous ability to see through the multiverse and is unsure why she has decided to return to Rapture. So in the lab, you find that portal to Columbia. She hypothesizes that by acquiring some of the particles to keep Columbia afloat, she can lift Fontaine's building. She discovers that Suchong.
Suchong, yeah.
Yeah, Suchong and Columbia industrialist Jeremiah Fink, they had shared technology, co-developing Big Daddies and the Songbird, which is what the eagle was called.
Okay.
So you get to the Fontaine building, you're able to raise the store, and but you like work out like a deal with Atlas because Atlas is like captured Sally. Okay. And the only way he would free her is if, like, because in the here Atlas is real. Like, you see Atlas, you interact with Atlas. He is now like a character. He's not like a fake thing in BioShock 1.
Right.
And so you do that to sort of help him to get Sally back. And then, and that is like, you actually like talk to Andrew Ryan, and he tries to like, you know, get you out of there. But you, of course, get away from that. But Elizabeth awakens, finds the city beset by civil war. After Atlas threatens to torture Sally, Elizabeth agrees to retrieve the ace from Suchong's lab. And then you find Suchong. He gets killed by a Big Daddy because this is when they're trying to like get the little sisters to imprint on the Big Daddies. Like it was like something that they worked out in a lab.
I remember logs about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And they, and like Suchong wasn't getting able to do it, but then he starts like picking on but you actually become responsible for the Big Daddies imprinting on the little sisters, because you find a Big Daddy in peril and there's some little sisters there, and then you with the little sisters help the Big Daddy, and that causes them to finally like imprint. So you kind of begin that relationship.
Wow.
And then when like Su Chong is seeing what's going on, he gets mad at the little sisters and harms them, and then the Big Daddy just right in his fucking chest, right?
Wow. Okay.
And with him is a coded message that Elizabeth realizes is the ace in the hole, which is the phrase, "Would you kindly?" Which is the trigger phase that Su Chong implanted in Jack, the protagonist from BioShock.
He had a name? Okay.
Yeah, you're Jack. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so Atlas orders his men to make arrangements for Jack to come to Rapture, and then beats Elizabeth to death with a wrench. In her final moments, Elizabeth has a vision of the events that will come to pass, which is Jack coming to Rapture, killing Ryan and Atlas, and saving Sally and the other little sisters. So basically, Elizabeth sacrifices herself in order to cause the events of BioShock 1 to happen. And you sort of play that out, and that's how it like tries to connect Infinite to 1 by like Elizabeth using her multiverse stuff in order to trigger the events in Rapture happening, because she sees the only way this will actually work out is for her to die and causing Jack, the son of Ryan, to actually come down and essentially fulfill his destiny of saving the little sisters and getting rid of Rapture for good.
Right. Wow.
That's
actually fucking cool.
And it is some really good storytelling. Like, it's handled really well. The gameplay change is really nice, and getting to play as Elizabeth was a really nice step. Like, it's like, get rid of all that Booker DeWitt bullshit, all that Comstock bullshit. Here we're going to like tell a story that's more directly tied to BioShock 1 in the Infinite style. And it's pretty good. People praise it really highly, and I totally get why. It's pretty good, and it's much more meaty as a game than episode 1 was.
Okay. That's so interesting. I never thought like the DLC of Infinite would be fucking Rapture, right? Like I just never assumed that would be the case. Interesting.
Yeah, it felt like with the DLC, because at the end of Infinite, when they try to connect them and it feels kind of half-assed, this DLC is them being like, no, we can actually like directly connect these. Let's do it. And I think they handled it really well.
Wow.
Especially because it's like they drop all the weird like political stuff from BioShock Infinite, and they're just telling more of a direct story about Rapture and everything. And I think that's why it works better, because it sort of allows itself to kind of sit in its own universe rather than trying to make a half-hearted point to the player.
Yeah. That does sound more palatable, because I'm interested, because again, it sounds a little, I don't know if self-serving is the proper term, but it's more like, really, we're just going to go back to Rapture. I mean, I thought this is BioShock Infinite, but that sounds cool. That sounds actually cool. Now I actually want to see it.
And if you have, as I said before with BioShock 2, if you have the complete edition, it's right there. So you can just jump right in and play it. And one little fun fact about Infinite is there's like an unlockable hard mode in there called 1999 mode.
Okay.
Which is meant to, I think, like evoke like, oh, like back in the 90s when games were hard or whatever kind of dumb shit or whatever. Right. But you can unlock it at any point in the game, or just when you're like in the main menu by inputting a very famous code.
Okay.
Up, down, left, right, BA start.
Really?
The fucking Konami code is in BioShock Infinite.
Wow. Why?
Little fun fact for you.
That's so weird.
Why not?
I guess.
The Konami code's in a lot of weird places, man.
I don't think I've ever seen an instance of the Konami code not in a Konami game, I guess.
Oh, there's a few of them.
Yeah, that's the first one I've heard of. I'm sure, that would be interesting to track down all of those. I'm sure there's a weird wiki on that. Someone's tracked them all down. I mean, yeah,
there's like random websites that if you go to them and type in the Konami code, stuff happens.
That's so bizarre.
Do you know those like little baby toys that are video game controllers?
Yeah.
If you input the Konami code on it, it does like a little special thing.
That's That's so fucking bizarre. That's interesting. Okay, yeah, that maybe 2 hours on Konami code and non-Konami games next week. Okay, well, shit. I think we talked for 2 hours about BioShock fucking Infinite, or damn near. So, wow, we've reached the end, and it was it was exactly the conversation I thought we would have about it. But thank you. I'm so glad we played these games essentially together. I've been wanting to play them forever. So
yeah, me too. I'm glad I finally got these out of the backlog.
Yes, and thanks for talking about BioShock Infinite with me. Thanks for not shrieking in terror when I said bad words. And then
Is that what I was that was what I was supposed to do. Oh
no, please don't do that.
Showcase my white fragility.
You can showcase that next time.
I'll show you it in the shower.
Hold you up at dick point. Oh wait, did we already make that joke? Okay,
We're making it again.
All right. Thank you, everybody who listened to this entire trilogy of podcasts about the BioShock trilogy. And,
don't hate us too much.
Don't hate us too much. We had opinions, but I think our opinions are the best opinions. Okay. What can I say?
Some may say. It's subjective.
Thank you for joining us. Check the description of this podcast to follow us on social media. See you next time. Bye.
You've been listening to Fine Time.